Graded comic books are not selling. CGC is dead. No one wants them. I've gotten many comments like this over the years about how CGC destroyed the comic book hobby. No one wants graded comic books. Raw is the way to go. And they're just really hard to sell. I mean, look at some of these comments I've gotten, and this is just recent comments in the last few months. CGC destroyed the hobby. Buy comics to read. CGC is ruining the value. Raw or nothing. Stop submitting books. I see a lot of people prefer Raw over CGC. I've tried my best to always answer as many comments as I possibly can, and when these come across, I'll type away at each person. Generally, a lot of people have just honest questions, and I try to answer them. But then this video came across by this person named Sticky Goose talking about how he had a friend who had these CGC books and they weren't selling at all, and they sat, and he ended up having to crack them out and selling raw is the only way to get rid of them. No one wants CGC books or graded comic books anymore. So let me just officially address Sticky Goose, his friends, and all the people that comment that you are completely wrong. And first, let me say that if you don't like graded books, that's fine. That's fine. You can collect raw all you want. And just because you think graded books are no good doesn't mean that everyone thinks graded books are no good. Just because you think it's destroying the hobby doesn't mean that's how everyone else feels. So let me go through some of these misconceptions and explain why CGC and graded comic books are good for the hobby and actually are a net benefit. One of the best things that CGC does for the hobby that a lot of people do not understand because they weren't around or they did not collect prior to CGC existing, CGC's been around for 20 years, is the amount of, I wouldn't say scam, but the amount of bad deals that happen to unsuspecting people. A lot of people do not know how to see restoration. They don't know what to look for. They don't know how many pages should belong in certain books. A lot of times it's 8, yeah, but that's more modern time. What about if you have an old golden age like this? How many pages are on there? A lot of people don't know. So prior to the internet and all that kind of stuff, people had no idea. And a lot of times people might have got scammed, maybe unknowingly or on purpose, and they would buy a book and it turns out it's restored. It turns out it's trimmed. Turns out there's color touch, glue, missing pages, missing coupons. They wouldn't know. They didn't know that kind of stuff. So when CGC came along, it helped a lot of these people because if you don't know how to spot restoration, CGC will do that for you. You will send a book in and you're like, oh, this is restored. Oh, okay. And imagine you're trying to do a deal with someone and you're doing a $5,000, $10,000 book, and turns out the book you bought turns out to be restored and is worth a fraction of what you paid. Well, CGC will get rid of all that for you. You don't have to spend years and years, maybe even decades, understanding the nuances of restoration. You no longer have to do that with CGC. So that is a massive benefit for people that they don't understand that CGC gives them. In the Sticky Goose video, he goes on to say how his friend had all these graded books and he tried to sell them and they would not move. No one wants CGC graded books anymore. No one wants them. And he had to crack them out and sell them. And then he even said he sold them at a loss. He lost money on them. Well, first of all, you probably bought them at too high, at a peak. And so when you cracked them out and sold them, that's probably why it went down. It wasn't because CGC is bad. That's not why. It's because the market in general has dropped. Also, the biggest thing is, it's probably how did you price them? Just because you have the book, there's lots of dealers, lots of people out there that price the books way, way too high. I mean, just look at this. This is on eBay. Just look at this from a dealer. A Spider-Man 300 First Venom in a 9.4, so not in top grade or anything like that. In a 9.4, he has it listed for over $2,100. Now you might be thinking, is that a lot? I don't know. Well, you can buy one literally for $500 or $600 right now on eBay. There's tons of examples. There's tons and tons and tons. Well, what do they go for? Well, if you look at the price of what they've been actually selling for, they've been selling for around $550 to $650. So let's say $600. That's where they are. But this person, along with a bunch of other people, have them way too high. Way, way too high. This person isn't the only one that has this particular book too high. There's lots of people. And then the person in the video went on to say he had a Batman 227. Well, if you look at the price of a Batman 227, here's an example of someone trying to sell one on eBay in a 6.0 for $1,000. Now, is that high? I don't know. Well, let's look at what recent sales have been going. Recent sales puts it around $700. Here you can get literally a 6.5, a better grade, for about $50 cheaper. And here's one in auction that has no bids for about $750. So when people say, "Oh, it's not selling," well, what are you putting at? What price are you putting at? That to me makes no sense. Not selling. That means all books will sell. All books. You put them in an auction, they will sell. So when people say it's not selling, oh, I can't move them, you probably priced it too high. You don't know what the actual market is going for. The person probably bought this book a long, long time ago when the height of 2021, bought it, and now he's like, well, I need to get my money back at least, and tries to put it at what he paid for it. Kind of like this Spider-Man 300. The last time one sold for $2,100 was back at the height in 2021. So there's people out there that get into books and then they want at least their money back or more. But I'm sorry, the market has changed. It has dipped down. And so this person, when they say, oh, I can't sell them, that to me is this preposterous. You can sell them. You're just not putting in the right price, because tons of books sell every single day. Hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of books sell every single day. And the books that he had were key books. They sell every single day. But the problem is you're pricing them too high. And when the person said he lost money, I meant, well, and that he'll never use CGC graded books again because they just sit and they lose money. A lot of books lost money. A lot of things went down. It wasn't just your particular books. A lot of books. And what do you think happens? Do you think when these books go down, that only the CGC value goes down, that not the raw value goes down as well? You think all of a sudden raw now is like stabilized way at its peak in 2021 while all CGC books keep dropping? No, that's not how it works. Your raw value has gone down as well. And also the misconception that people prefer raw. That is not the case. If that were the case, then CGC books wouldn't go for more. Like, do you think something like this, a 9.8 Spider-Man 252, do you think this is going to go for more in a CGC case or raw? What do you think? You think someone's going to trust someone's grading that is buying online or buying Facebook Marketplace or Instagram? They're like, oh yeah, I believe. Yep. I believe that you're saying it's a 9.8 for sure. And they're going to sell it to them and they're going to pay the exact same price as if it was in a CGC case. Do you think someone's going to pay more, like 6 figures for this book right here, raw? No, they're not going to, because they don't know. What if there's restoration? What if there's a coupon missing? What if there's all that kind of stuff I talked about before? And also, what kind of grades? The difference between a 9.0 and an 8.5 in a book like this is massive. Also, there was an Action Comics #1 that sold recently in 2024, April, for $6 million. Record price for a comic book ever. Do you think that book is going to go for more? Went for more than $6 million if it was ungraded raw? No, it wouldn't. Would it go for a lot? Yeah, it would probably go for millions of dollars, but it wouldn't go for $6 million a record price if it was ungraded raw. I'm sorry, that would not happen. And if that were the case, then everyone would be selling their comics raw. I think the biggest factor and why people say, raw is the way to go is financial demographics. There's different camps of people, and people that are in the camp of they buy books for like $50, $5, maybe $100, in that range, like basically under $100. CGC is not really a factor in that space, because if you're picking up a book for $5, just getting it cased alone and shipping and insurance, all that kind of stuff, you're going to spend almost $50 alone on that. So why would you case a $5 book? It makes sense not to, because you're not really adding any value. If you try to sell that, it's not like you're going to sell it for $100 once it's cased. No, it's still going to be like $20 or $30, a little bit more than when it was raw, but you have to pay $50 just to get it graded. So that's like the biggest thing, is the people that are in this different financial demographic, the people that don't spend, not spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on a comic book, or tens of thousands or even thousands of dollars on a comic book. People that are like sub $100, maybe they have a couple books in their collection that is like $300, $400, but for the most part, their collection consists of books that are probably, sub $50, sub $100. Those are the people that seem to say, oh, raw is the way to go. And, in that regard, yeah, they are kind of right. I wouldn't grade books that are $5. It just, the amount of money you have to put into it, unless you really want it, then that's fine. But the amount of money you have to put into it just to get it graded is not really worth it. Like financially, it's just not a good decision. So there's this different camps of collectors. I'm not saying one is right and one is wrong. What I'm saying here is, just because you're in this camp and these are the types of books you get, you go through the dollar bins and you pick up, oh, I got this book and it's like $3. And what you think about graded books does not apply to the person who's in this camp who's buying more expensive books. And then I'll get comments like, well, you can't read them if they're cased. Well, yeah, that's true. You can always get the reprints in the omnibuses, and there's things online if you really want to read them. And this, second of all, do you really want to read a 100-year-old comic book and damage it? Some of these comic books have survived, you know, world wars, like different paper drives, book burnings. Yes, there were comic book burnings in the 50s. They had this huge outcry about how comic books are destroying the youth, and all the mothers grab their kids' comic books and have burnings in the street. There's comics that have survived that. They've come from that. I wouldn't feel comfortable if I was reading something and ruin it because it's a part of history. I'd want to protect it. So there's more to comics than just reading them. Yes, reading is part of it and looking at it and stuff like that, but it's also collectability, and they're a part of history now. So putting it in a CGC case at least gives it some protection from the elements, from maybe dropping it or whatever. So yeah, you don't get to read it, but at the same time, it's like, I don't know, I feel comfortable reading it because I could possibly damage the book. Then people say CGC is a scam and a terrible company. Yes, they have their faults. All big companies do. Every company has their faults. The whole reholder scam. And there's a lot of things that happen in business. And they should take the blame. But people will say that I'm a CGC or a graded comic book shill. And I use them, so that's why I'm defending them. But it's not me, it's you. See, I am just the middleman. I just facilitate books. I don't create these books. I don't make them. All I do is I find them and then find a new home for them. I'm just a middleman. If customers out there wanted me to only sell them raw books, then I would only sell them raw books. But because my customers demand that I have them graded and cased, then I sell them graded and cased. There's a reason why I don't use CBCS and I always use CGC. When I did use CBCS back in the day, I would have customers saying, yeah, I'll buy that X-Men #1 from you, but can you send it to CGC and get the same grade? Well, now I'm just spending money to send it to CBCS to get it back just to send it to CGC just so I can sell it. They sat longer. They didn't move as quick. I had more trouble selling them. They went for a lesser price. So in the end, I just use CGC because that's what the customers demanded. If the customers demanded that I only use PGX, then I'd be using PGX. If it was raw, same thing. There are customers I have that only like raw and, stuff that's in the $100, $200, $400, $500 range. There are people out there that still want raw regardless of price. I know someone that will buy books that are 5, 10, 15 grand, crack them out because they like their collection to be raw. And that is totally fine. There is room for everyone in this hobby. So if you think CGC is bad for the hobby, destroying the hobby, they don't sell, all that kind of stuff, just know that is your opinion, and that is not the opinion of a lot of other people that actually do like it and do like having it, because it has opened the door for a lot more people to join. People that don't have to know much about comic books, but they really love them. My older brother was really into comic books. He doesn't know how to grade. He doesn't know how to, like, the difference in grading and restoration and all that kind of stuff. But he's like, I love Spider-Man. And he got a Fantasy 15. It takes a lot of the guesswork out for a lot of people, and people can jump in. And there's not this massive barrier for people to get over just to understand what's going on in the entire collectible comic book space. So in the end, buy what you love. Enjoy it. Whether it be raw comic books, whether it be graded comic books, CBCS, PGX, CGC, PSA. Let me know in the comments below which type of comic collector you are, and have a great day.